Yeah. Subscribe to the channel. The piercing wind with snow turned the passage of passers-by into a real test. Biting snowflakes, hitting the open areas of the hands and face, painfully poked, forcing the head into the shoulders and adding steps on the open areas. The city, despite the still not late time of day, was almost deserted. Nobody wanted to fight the elements. After all, it did not promise anything good, including increased risk of getting cold and complete lack of pleasure from walking walks. Tatiana, with effort, overcoming the gust of wind and snowy snow, opened the entrance door of the entrance and, entering, almost immediately stumbled upon the everywhere neighbor on the first floor. Tanetka, hell, here's what the weather is like today. In the voice of the local. The girl made an attempt to sneak to the elevator past the pensioner. However, a gray-haired woman who left her apartment to throw unnecessary things into the garbage grabbed Raghav by the hand. "Tell me, dear, are you and your husband okay?" asked Rosa Lvovna, looking intently right in the eye. Of course, as always. Tatiana, with all her might, pulled out her hand from the clasp of the interlocutor. The old lady rolled her eyes out of confusion. "Why?" Raghav automatically threw up. "I don't want to upset you, but I can't keep quiet either." Rosa Lvovna made a dramatic pause. "You see, the whole house is talking about the romance between yours and this one." Tatiana stood in front of her neighbor in complete mental confusion. In the girl's head, disgusting scenes of adultery began to occur, which she saw in melodramatic series genre. "So where is it clearer?" Rosa Lvovna went on whisper. "And Tashka with this larva, crooked, tied up. Did she express it or what?" "It can't be." Rogova raised her voice. "Our family does not talk to Olga at all. I don't know what happened there." The pensioner looked questionably at the interlocutor. "But I can still see and hear, so—" "Rose Lvovna, I assure you that my Antosha can't do anything prejudicial." Tatiana's voice heard the right anger. Well, look, girl, as if it wasn't too late. The guy needs to be rescued urgently. Everyone knows what kind of crooked—" The last phrase was said with clear contempt, because, according to the pensioner, all these businesswomen were smeared with one world. Olga successfully engaged in business activity in the sphere of health and beauty. In other words, she held a spa salon in the same bedroom area where she lived herself. We do not communicate with her. Goodbye. The girl has already decided for herself that that's why these old men always have things to do before they are young. It already seems that all these pensioners, godly aduvans, should calmly engage in spiritual ascension and prepare for eternity. And you look, they don't have enough TV. They definitely want to personally participate in someone else's fate. In the thoughts of Krugova, while she was climbing the elevator to her floor, there was a violent outrage. I remembered the case when Kostik fell unknowingly in front of the entrance and hit the door of the parked car with his bicycle. "And who will now scratch me?" Then the neighbor shouted at Tatiana. "You always park in the wrong place. This is my complaint to you." Rogova understood that in this fight she has an invulnerable position, but could not simply swallow the insult and silently pay the damage. "And someone said that you can't leave the car here for a couple of minutes. I don't see any special signs nearby." Businesswoman was not going to give up any of her territories. She was parking here all the time and nothing. The last argument was in the range of concrete. "Because of you, passers-by are forced to bypass the car, not along the sidewalk, and children cannot ride bicycles and scooters normally." Tatiana continued to bend her position. "You have two options. Either you compensate my financial damage, or you deal with the police." Krivova was sure that the rights were. "You cannot doubt that I will not give a penny." The girl decided to go to the end. Moreover, the son hurt his elbow badly, and he had to put stitches in the trampunk. "Let's see." Olga demonstratively began to look for the phone number of the warden in her smartphone. Then Tatiana did not know the final ending of this story, because to her great surprise, no one else talked to her about this topic, and the relationship with the neighbor was irrevocably spoiled. So she was scared of Krivov. I knew that the truth was on my side, Tatiana thought. Surprisingly, but even her husband did not want to be brainwashed so that he would deal with this sturvezoid. Just said in the evening after dinner that his son fell on a bike and scratched her car. Anton silently listened, and was impressed only by the hand tied by his son. Kostian, you wouldn't drive in the yard where the cars are. The parent carefully rubbed his own seagull on the chicken's head. I will not do it anymore. Will you repair my bike? My frame is bent. The son knew that his father is a great car mechanic who can do any repair. I'll do it tomorrow. Anton gently looked at the growing heir. You're the best. The child was burned out and jumped out of the table. A mess. Lovingly noticed the mother, collecting from the table the remains of food and dirty dishes. All on me, the head of the Rogov family proudly concluded. And then life continued in its previous mode. Only with Krivova living a floor above, Tatiana generally stopped communicating. She always lowered her head when she met and quickly passed by, even unwell. Now these women in the entrance began to call the cursed girlfriends. Of course, this was informed Anton, who decided not to harass baby Osin Nezdo. The young man was not distinguished by high tolerance in the field of sex relations, so he adhered to the old rule that the female soul is dark. And in this opinion, he strengthened even more after another meeting with a former classmate, with whom he maintained friendly relations to this day. Seryoga, imagine what is happening. Anton even entrusted his friend with family secrets. Well, what other secrets of the Madrid palace can you reveal to me? My friend was deeply divorced for several years, and therefore treated family life with a known distrust. His ex was a light-minded girl, and managed to set up a branch horn for Sergei in 3 years of joint life. Even Anton then insisted on a divorce, calling his friend a dear and a tux. It's good that their former family did not have children. Otherwise, they would be doomed to a harmful life in which their parents are in constant confrontation. You know the owner of the beauty salon? The son? Who doesn't know Madame Krivov? She is a local celebrity. Sergei thoughtfully scratched his chin. What are you jealous of? Do you like it? Anton understood the magic of women's charms perfectly, especially when it comes to such inexperienced men as his friend. And who cares if she doesn't like it? The classmate looked at her from afar, somewhere above the head of Rogov. Wake up, woman. The guy, to bring the comrade in an adequate state, even spent several times with his hand in front of him, not completely focused eyes. Oh yes, what did you say? Sergei broke out of the captivity of dreams and unnecessary dreams. The young man has just gone through a small excursion into the past when he witnessed how Madame Krivova sat down in her sports crossover. At that time, a woman in the age of with a ponytail was dressed in a blushing dress of bright red. She was all blue like a dawn. Red shoes, a handbag, and an air scarf flowing behind her with an amazing loop. Everything was in the color of the car. Olga graciously bent her stand before sliding inside the car. And it was at this moment that the elegant plastic was clearly fixed in Sergei's mind. The young man was so amazed by the female charm that all subsequent nights before sleep he tried to remember that colorful picture. And later, his imagination began to add additional details to the bright image of the business lady, which made his heart beat madly and blood. What to say? Krivova entered the brain and the soul of the unmarried man with the indestructible Varlamstvo, after which there are serious traces. Drowning with this Krivova, a quarrel arose because of the bone. Her son scratched her car, and I had to, in order not to defuse the conflict to the level of police protocols, quietly eliminate the defect. Anton briefly outlined the picture. It is good to have golden hands and a car service. Sergei shook his head to finally free himself from the slumped-up temptation. This is definitely said about Rucky, and not only you, but the STO has to me the attitude of exclusively as a workplace, not property. Rogov dreamed of opening his business in the future, but so far he was forced to be implemented only as a car detective, snuggling, as they say, on someone else's uncle. This is just a matter of time. Sergei fully supported the idea of a friend regarding his own business. So, Olga was impressed by my abilities. After all, I not only fixed her scratch, but also adjusted the engine and repaired the air conditioner. It just seems that the Germans are eternal, and in fact there are always mistakes. Rogov could talk about cars for hours. Closer to the point, my friend. Sergei killed the former classmate, remembering that time is money, and shortness, by the way, is the sister of talent. In short, She began to ask me for help. She needs to clean the drain in the bathroom, then repair the dishwasher. Even in the bedroom, she was started by a cable under the... Suddenly Sergei felt a... Rogov interrupted his friend and deliberately used the word insinuation, so that the interlocutor finally concentrated his attention. Do you need an assistant? Suddenly asked the comrade. I need only for the right advice, not for what you were hinting at me, worried shit. Anton has already begun to doubt the correctness of his appeal to Sergei. Don't you really know how to approach fragile and so vulnerable women? The rhetoricality of the question was confirmed by the sour physiognomy of Vizavi. Olga wants me to help her with the renovation of the apartment. Says that she does not want to hire a team for cosmetic work. Inexpensive and not purposeful. And she knows me and can count on the result. Moreover, the budget indicated such a cheerful. And the day of the jam will soon be over. It seems that everything will melt if it is not for this shit with their quarrel. In the voice of a young man, there was no ordinary confidence. So, make up for them. It's okay. Sergei's vital optimism began to return to him. Yeah, you would see the face of your wife when you recently mentioned her about Olga. Anton made a facial expression reminiscent of the disappointment of the hangman before the execution. Then just make some money and be happy. The former classmate has not tried to hide what he envies in part, related to his close relations with a bright neighbor. I'm afraid that Rosa Lvovna and other neighbors from the entrance will burn my office. Anton thoughtfully crumpled the tip of his nose. And I really want to make Tanya pleasant. It seems that the question of a eaten egg is not worth it, and I have to crumple my ass like this in this part. Yes, brother, double life always ends with a scandal. Sergei summed up in his head, which formed a stable conviction that his friend fell into a curve with all the consequences of this. You yourself are double life and also called a friend. Rogov decided to take a risk and still take the project, which is profitable from an economic point of view. It's good to be a ruckus. The comrade was. Anton also put a point in this conversation and in his doubts. And then the terrible conversation of Tatiana and Rosa Lvovna took place in the entrance. It was he who became the starting point that started the chain of events that followed this. Hello, Tanyush. An old friend called on her mobile phone. The girl lived in the same bedroom area and knew many of the neighbors of Rogova personally. In the voice of the friend, there was a desire to communicate, as they say, by heart, washing the bones of all their common acquaintances. Hello. Tatiana comfortably sat in her chair and prepared for a stormy discussion. There was a sunny day recently. Listen, your neighbor turned out well. I really liked the chocolate wrapping. Then it went for a couple of days like new. Do you want to make me a company? Katia spoke with great enthusiasm. Don't even tell me about this crooked one. You snitch in my ass. Rogova even grumbled when she mentioned the spa salon as a toothache. By the way, skipping past the ears of the words of the former classmate, the girl continued, there I caught up with the words of one woman who knows the owner of the establishment well, and she told me such a thing. Katia, you know that the information received in such places must always be rechecked. Tatiana interrupted. Don't say, it sounds very true. Plus, I saw something myself. The friend made a significant pause, after which she continued. In short, this is Olga on a short leg with your coat. I don't know what connects them, so unusual, only, listen, did our friendship become a burden for you? Or what? Tatiana impatiently interrupted Katia. By the way, I'm trying for you, the girl was offended. Okay, what do you have about Rogov? Tatiana remembered the words of Rosa Lvovna and decided to compare the facts. She saw how Anton came to her office in the sun and spent there for quite a long time, maybe even about half an hour. And then she very kindly escorted him to the porch itself and said something like, I will wait for tomorrow at home. In the voice of the friend, notes and intrigues were heard. I know you better, Antosha. There are no other women for him except me. Words sounded like a challenge. Indeed, Katia was still trying to become a girl Rogov at the time when he was already taking care of Tatiana. Then the girlfriend received a very good life lesson, and in a rather tough and humiliating form. Anton deliberately refused her in front of his girlfriend, so that it would be inappropriate to go ahead. Tanya, imagine Katia wants me to break up with you and become her boyfriend. Raghav was not different in diplomacy, so he judged in that time in his own right. It seemed that this was enough for the sworn friendship to turn into an open confrontation. But Tanya was not different in angry and vengeful character and forgave Katia. However, after this incident, in their relationship, the topic about Anton was considered taboo. And here again, a situation arose when the loyalty of a young man was left in doubt. Wait, I'm telling you only facts that I saw myself, not from the words of others. They meet. If you don't know what it means, it's a secret. And then you can put it up yourself, and Katia's voice was as convincing as possible. I heard you. Rogova turned off without saying goodbye. Okay, there's nothing to guess on the coffee goose. It is important to get confirmation or refutation heard. I'll have to play spy games. Tatiana firmly decided to set up a surveillance camera for her husband. The young woman developed a clear plan in which there was a place for law enforcement. Rogova found out from her husband when he was going to come home, referring to the high load in the STO, and began to closely monitor the incoming elevator. And so she saw how her husband entered the Krivova apartment, and the woman happily met him and let him in on the rights of her old acquaintance. The heart was madly beating dramatic beats, and the voice was trembling with fear and ignorance when she was dialing the phone number of the district police officer. Moreover, now she called the emergency unit, where he could no longer be due to the late time. Rogova accidentally found out a few months ago the personal contact of Kapustin when she asked him for help as a witness. Then the police searched the apartment of one of the temporarily living on the second floor of the citizen with a doubtful reputation. This unofficial tenant of the apartment was doing something illegal there. I urgently need your participation. Tatiana Gavrilovna. The policeman apparently guessed, said the father. Wait for me, don't go to the neighbors upstairs. Okay, hurry up. The young woman turned off. Rogova quickly put her hair in order and put on a warm sweater on top of the t-shirt. Coming out into the corridor, she walked upstairs above her apartment and began to wait for the arrival of the... Surprisingly, the rather cloudy Captain Kapustin left the elevator only minutes after the call. Apparently, he has not yet returned from the service home. They continued to scream. The policeman took out Makarov's gun from the cab and pressed the doorbell button. Continue. Tatiana, with impatience, waited for the next door to show the hateful physiognomy of the neighbor. Young man with surprise and fright looked at the policeman with a weapon and his wife. What happened? Rogov walked into the corridor, skipping the arrivals. Where is the owner of the apartment? Asked Kapustin. In the bathroom, Anton automatically replied. Oh, you're a bastard. Tatiana has already caught the hair of the faithful. Aren't you ashamed? The policeman already realized that he was divorced as a young girl, dealing with his husband's relationships. What are you doing? Krivov came out of the bathroom. Stand still. The district police officer tried to pull Tatiana, who was angry at Anton, and he was completely convinced that the approach of Olga would only add to the situation of the fire. Krivova rounded her eyes and silently looked at the scene in the corridor. Someone might find the situation funny, but not the owner of the apartment. After all, the woman perfectly realized that now her reputation would be under serious testing. And, already minutes later, in the spacious kitchen of Krivova, on which cosmetic repair was recently done, sat the spouses of Rogov, Captain Kapustin, and Olga herself. This various company has already managed to find out all the details of its stay here in this format. Now the guest and the hostess were vigorously discussing the incident. After finding out all the circumstances, a lot of things went in their place. Tatiana realized that Anton secretly repaired the car in his service from her. And when Olga began to contact him for the economic needs and the renovation of the apartment, the young man decided to use the extra income to make his wife a birthday gift. Yes, the surprise did not work out, but since then Tatiana has made up with Olga. And their friendship excluded the prefix for the cursed. And Captain Kapustin got into the situation and did not initiate an administrative case regarding the false call. He, by the way, was single and from that moment decided to openly look after Rogova. Perhaps in a while Krivov will become Kapustin, but this is already beyond the framework of this story.